Hi, hello. I hope you're doing well. If you're new here, my name is Khadija, and today I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in March and April. Before we get into the books, I have some stats. So I read a total of 19 books. Now you might be thinking, wow, 19 books, that's such an accomplishment. Like she must be reading so many different genres and reading so diversely. Well, the thing is, 16 of those books were from one series. We're going to get to that. In March, I read 8 books, mostly near the end of the month, and then 7 of those books were from one fantasy world again. And the remaining book is also a YA fantasy, so just entirely a month of YA fantasy. In April, I read 11 books, and one was adult fantasy, one was contemporary romance, and then the rest were all fantasy, YA fantasy, again from the same series. The series in question is the Shadowhunters Chronicles. I fell down the rabbit hole in March. These aren't short books. Like these are like on average, I would say probably 500 to 700. Problem is I just can't read series like a normal person. If I'm really engrossed in a series, I literally cannot read anything else until I finish that series, or at least all the books that are currently out, because that's all I'm going to be thinking about. Like it's so bad for me. Anyways, the reason why I'm combining March and April is because if I just did a video on March, 95% of the books that I would be talking about would be Shadowhunters books, and I just don't want to do that. What we're going to do instead is I'm going to combine all the Shadowhunters books, and I'm going to talk about the non-Shadowhunters books first, so that way, like, if you don't care about Shadowhunters, you can just watch the first bit of the video and move on, because like, let's be real, the bulk of this video is going to be about the Shadowhunters books. I've got my notes right here, so let's get into it. The first book that I want to talk about is A Stage Set for Villains by Shannon Spann, which is a debut upper YA fantasy. This was actually on my list of most anticipated books this year, and it met my expectations. So this is set in a world where there are these immortal beings called players who are known to be very vicious. They are performers of the playhouse, which is like a theater. They have the ability to manipulate mind, body, heart, like everything about being human, essentially. So we're dealing with some really scary, vicious stuff. And the magic system in this book is also rooted in theater and acting technique. And it was so cool. Like it was just done so well. I was so fascinated. We follow our main character, Riven, who is 18, I think, and she is cursed by a player when she is a little girl. And then that curse is like slowly killing her and kind of ruining her life. And she is desperate to find a cure. The Playhouse offers this once in a lifetime opportunity for a mortal, like just an average person, to compete in a competition to essentially steal the immortality or take the immortality of a player and like take their place. While people are auditioning for this competition, Riven sneaks into the Playhouse and she ends up striking a bargain with Jude, who is the lead player. This was honestly like such a unique and fresh concept in this genre. Like there were so many twists and turns that kept me guessing, and I love when a book makes me feel like that. Like I'm just constantly thinking about what's going to happen next and trying to figure it out. It's so much fun. It felt like a love letter to theater, and it was everything that I wanted Caraval to be. It just absolutely delivered on like the twisty turny, keeps you guessing dark vibes on every front that it promises. And I also want to say that it's really hard to incorporate like twists, like really big twists that kind of uproot the whole story, especially when there's multiple twists in the story, without making it feel like it's just added in for shock factor or making it feel cheap. But Shannon achieves every single twist that she writes in this book. Like she does it so well, and it's truly such a brilliant and well thought out book. And again, it feels so fresh. I would recommend it to anyone who enjoys YA fantasy, but especially if you have an interest in theater or if you're a theater nerd. I think you're gonna love this book. Yeah, I had so much fun with it. I was expecting to have fun with it, and I did, so I'm happy about that. That was A Stage Set for Villains by Shannon Spann. Then I read Red City by Marie Lu, which is an adult urban fantasy, and I haven't read a Marie Lu book since The Young Elite, so it's been years. It's been a really long time, but basically I heard that she was coming out with an adult debut, and I was really interested and I was really intrigued because I used to really love the Legend series. Like that was instrumental in my YA reading journey. So obviously I was like, I need to check out her adult debut. So it was also on my most anticipated list this year. I would say my expectations were met. Like it took me a bit longer to read than on average because the story felt very dense, and I could tell that Marie did a lot of research for this book and spent a lot of time in this world. In terms of the plot, Red City is set in an alternate Los Angeles where alchemy is like a hidden art that is used and controlled by like the two rival crime syndicates in the city, Grand Central and Lumines. I think I'm saying that right. And it's marketed as a sort of drug to the world's elites. So we follow Sam and Ari, who are our main characters, and we kind of follow them from elementary school through high school until they graduate, and then beyond when they're adults. They meet each other in elementary school, and then after they graduate high school, they go their separate ways until they meet each other again as alchemists on opposite sides working for their rivals. So you can kind of imagine that that's really bad. You can kind of see where this is going. It's kind of like Romeo and Juliet, but much more serious. The magic system was explained and integrated into the world so well, which is really, really hard to do in fantasy. Like, it felt believable. The characters were also very complex and morally gray. And when I say morally gray, I mean morally gray. But somehow Sam and Ari were relatively like easy to root for, even when you were kind of like, I don't know how I feel about that. I would not read this book if you get squeamish at all, because it puts the dark in dark fantasy. Like, it's really dark. I also really liked the touch on the immigrant experience and the immigrant mother-daughter relationships. And Marie said that the scenes in the acknowledgement were a little autobiographical and inspired by her own experiences. And you can honestly tell how much care she put into the scenes with Sam and her mom. Those chapters were my favorite parts of the book. The reason why this didn't quite blow me away is because it feels like a setup book for the sequel. Like, it's setting up the world, it's setting up the characters, it's setting up the plot, etc., etc. I think this is a trilogy, or it's going to be a trilogy. So if you've got like an adult fantasy trilogy, like, you gotta set the scene in the first book. So I get why it needs to be like that, but it did feel like a setup book. The one thing that was a bit jarring to me were the like intimate scenes and the placement of the intimate scenes. And like, I was expecting them because it's an adult book, but they felt out of place in my opinion and uncomfortable. And to be clear, like, I think they were supposed to be uncomfortable due to the nature of those relationships and what the characters have experienced. But I don't know, I just felt like they didn't really add anything to the story. And maybe that's just because I don't really like to read open door scenes, but it just felt a bit out of place. Overall, I think I would recommend it if you like dark fantasy. I liked it enough to continue it with the sequel. That was Red City by Marie Lu. And then we have the only arc that I read in March and April, which is Bad Words by rioghnach Robinson, which is an adult contemporary romance, and it's publishing on October 6th. This is her debut adult novel. I really, really, really liked this. This book follows Selena Chan, who is a literary critic, and Parker Navarro, who is an author. Parker's debut novel didn't do very well because Selena, who is like a very well-known and highly regarded literary critic, she writes a scathing, like, negative review about his book, and so his sales kind of plummet, and he credits that to that review because of how highly regarded she is as a critic. When his next book comes out, Selena reviews it as well, and Parker confronts her about it publicly, which leads to a viral feud between the two of them. Although this is a romance novel, to me it read a lot like literary fiction, and I mean that in the best way. There is a lot of commentary here on the publishing world that really surprised me, particularly about like literary critique, what it means to make art, and then also like the vulnerability of sharing that art with the world and with other people. In regards to the literary critique commentary especially, I loved it because I feel like in our current like media landscape, I still see discourse about whether or not we should be sharing our negative reviews on books that we read, or sharing at all our thoughts on a book that we didn't like. Like, I still see people say, well, actually we should only be like sharing positive reviews on our platforms because it's not nice. Like, it's not a nice thing to do. I just don't understand that, because I think critique is necessary for everything. Critique is necessary for discussion. It's necessary for critical thinking. Like, if you're in a reader space and you're sharing your opinion that is constructive and not at all like attacking the author in any way, like, that is a completely different subject. But if you are sharing your constructive criticism, you're sharing your thoughts on why you didn't like a book, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I would say that we actually need to do that more. Like, we need to have more of these discussions. So I really liked how she approached that topic in this book, and like the importance of critique in literature. And the balance of humor and emotional depth I also thought was done very well. Like, there were moments where I was laughing out loud, and then there were moments where she was really like tugging at my heartstrings. The back and forth banter between Parker and Selena was also so much fun to read. I feel like the core of this book is what it means to truly know someone down to their core and the intimacy of that, and I thought that was explored very well. I will say, By the end of the book, I wasn't entirely convinced of Parker, like the male lead. I felt like, and I think this is an unpopular opinion because most of the reviews that I've seen are just completely glowing, like 5 stars across the board. But personally, like I felt like he needed to fight for Selena a little bit more, and there were times where it was kind of hard to root for him, in my opinion. But overall, I think this is definitely worth reading, and I thought it was a fantastic adult romance contemporary debut, and I will be reading whatever else she writes in the future. And I need to actually like go through her backlist because I really liked this, and it was a really good read in between all the fantasy I was reading. So that was Bad Words by rioghnach Robinson, which comes out on October 6th. Okay, so that was the whopping 3 whole books that I read in March and April that were not a part of one universe. I hope you enjoyed that segment of the video, because now we're gonna get into the Shadowhunters Chronicles. You told me 2 months ago that I would read almost 20 books in the Shadowhunters universe. I would have been like, you're crazy. Like, that's not gonna happen, especially in a month. Like, are you crazy? But here I am. I genuinely don't know what happened. It's like I blacked out. So I began this reading journey with the Infernal Devices, which includes Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, and Clockwork Princess, and it is a YA fantasy. So all of the books that are in the Shadowhunters world are all YA fantasy. So many people have such good things to say about the Infernal Devices. I have literally never heard a single negative thing about it, especially in regards to the love triangle. People can't talk about this love triangle without crashing out. So I had high expectations. These books made me feel like I was 16 again. The level of high and adrenaline that I was on when I was reading these actually needs to be studied. When I tell you I read the entire trilogy in one weekend, like it was Friday evening I read Clockwork Angel, Saturday evening I read Clockwork Prince, and then Sunday evening I read Clockwork Princess, and you best bet that I was staying up till 3 a.m. So the Infernal Devices is about a girl named Tessa Gray who goes to London in search of her missing brother. She basically gets a note from her brother telling her that he is in London and to follow him there, and so she goes to London, but she gets kidnapped when she arrives by 2 warlocks called the Dark Sisters. They take her to this like underworld. In this universe they call it the Downworld, which is essentially where like all the vampires and werewolves reside, etc., etc. And Tessa is like, she had no idea that this world even existed, and she had no idea that she wasn't a normal human being. She has this ability to shapeshift, like morph into any person. All she needs is an item of theirs, and she can turn into a carbon copy of that person, voice, appearance, everything. And these 2 warlocks, they're making her shapeshift every single day, like while she's in their captivity. And it's a really painful process. Like, it is not fun. Like, my girl is going through it in the beginning of this book, but she has to do what they ask because they threaten her with her brother's life. And they also keep talking about their master, like the Magister. They keep talking about this like mysterious Magister that like he's the reason why you're here in the first place. He wants to marry you, like all this really weird, creepy stuff. I know it sounds like I'm saying a lot, but this is literally the very beginning of the book. Very soon she is saved by Shadowhunters, and Shadowhunters are basically like human angel warriors who are supposed to protect the world from demons. And one of these Shadowhunters is Will Herondale. He takes her to the Institute, and the Institute is kind of like a safe haven, safe house for Shadowhunters, and there is an institute in every country in the world. And that's also where she meets Jem Carstairs, as well as the very large cast of characters that are either living in the Institute or that they meet after. I will not say anything else. I just absolutely fell in love with our main trio, like the main characters. I can't even think about them, like genuinely, like not to be dramatic, but like I literally can't think about them. Like the heartache, the one thing that everyone talks about when they talk about the Infernal Devices is the love triangle and how amazing it is and how nothing will ever be like it again. I have to say, I completely agree. Coming from someone who does not like love triangles, like they usually just piss me off or irritate me. This is like, no one is doing it like them. I don't think anyone will ever do it like them. Like I totally get what everyone is saying because I have never read another love triangle that is even remotely similar to the way that this one is written. There is so much love at every single angle. There's so much love between them that it feels overwhelming. Like you literally just want to cry every time they interact with each other. There also wasn't your like typical possessiveness, aggressiveness that you would come to see, especially in the early 2010s. There was none of that. Instead, you were getting like this level of selfless love. They all just loved each other so much. It just makes you want to cry. I did in fact cry. I did. It's that kind of deep selfless love where you are willing to have your heart be broken into a million pieces if it means that the two people you love most in the world are happy. I don't want to go too much into like their individual like relationships with each other, because I think you should experience this for the first time on your own. But I will say that like Will and Jem's bond especially just absolutely broke me. I can't think about them. Did the Clockwork Princess epilogue make me feel like my chest was caving in? Yes, it did. My mini review after I finished it was along the lines of like, I feel like someone just ripped my heart out and smashed it on the ground and it shattered into a million pieces and then trampled on it. It's not even remotely close to what I was actually feeling. Like, I genuinely am going to be at this restaurant forever. I don't think these characters are ever leaving my brain. When I sit back and I try to critique it, there are a few things that definitely could have been stronger. Like the plot was kind of just sprinkled here and there, but it is character focused, so I guess that wasn't really a priority. The antagonist, I also felt like they weren't that scary or intimidating because we didn't really spend a lot of time with them. And you know, it's very formulaic. I predicted quite a few things, but it didn't take away from my enjoyment of it. And it's because I've read so many books like this, like in this genre, that I just can kind of see what's coming from a mile away. But again, like it didn't take away from my experience at all. So would I recommend it? If you haven't already guessed, yes, I would. I loved it so much. I'm gonna hold it close to my heart. I do think it's worth reading, and I think it aged relatively well. If you like yearning, you should read it. You can literally just go in with no other context. Like, it can stand on its own completely. It kind of wraps everything in like a neat little package. You can just consume this trilogy and then move on with your day if that's what you want to do. You do not have to commit to anything else. I didn't have a hard time understanding any of the lore, any of the like magic system stuff, any of that. Like, it was really easy to read, and I think it's presented that way so you can kind of just jump in without having to read any of the other books. My ranking is Clockwork Princess, Clockwork Prince, and then Clockwork Angel. So that was the Infernal Devices. Rewired my brain chemistry a little bit. Tessa, Will, and Jem are going to stay with me forever. Then we move on to the Mortal Instruments, which is City of Bones, City of Ashes, City of Glass, City of Fallen Angels, City of Lost Souls, and City of Heavenly Fire. So there are 6 books in this series. This was definitely an experience. As a form of just pure entertainment, I think these are fun. If I'm looking at it critically, I don't think they're good. I feel like this is the one that everyone knows about because there was a movie. In case you don't know anything about the Mortal Instruments, the Mortal Instruments follows a girl named Clary who is living in New York, and I think she's 15, like almost 16 at the beginning of the first book. At the beginning, she goes to this club called Pandemonium with her friend Simon, and she sees something crazy happen. She sees a murder being committed by these teenagers with like really strange tattoos, carrying weapons at the club, and realizes that she's the only one who can see any of this happening. So she like screams. She tells her friend Simon, she's like, oh my God, I just witnessed this. Like, why is no one freaking out? We need to call the cops, blah, blah, blah. No one else could see it. So she is kind of like losing it a bit. She's like, how is this possible? Like, they were literally standing right there. Like, why can I see them and no one else can? She quickly finds out that these people are shadowhunters, who are again like a type of warrior who are dedicated to keeping people and the world safe from demons. This is where she meets Jace, who is your stereotypical blonde bad boy. And she also meets siblings Alec and Isabel, and soon after this happens, her mother disappears, and Clary is basically very quickly pulled into their world as she tries to figure out what's happening with her mother, where her mother is, and also like who she is. Like, why can she see all these things? Why does she have this sight? What is this other world? Who am I? Basically, like, that's kind of the plot line that follows the first 3 books. The first thing that I want to say is that some of the tropes and material that was in these books was questionable, to say the least. If these books were published now, I genuinely don't think they would make it through the process. Like, I don't think they would be published. The things that they were getting away with back then were diabolical. There is a specific plot line where 2 characters, after expressing their romantic interest in each other, are told that they're siblings, and they're not siblings. Like, this person was just evil and lying to them. But the fact that they thought this for 2 books, can we just wrap it up? Like, can we wrap it up? We don't know why this was a popular trope back then, because I remember this trope being in multiple like different forms of media. I think that if that wasn't a thing, I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more. It wasn't just that, it was also that it felt very, very young for me. And like, to be clear, I am not in the target audience anymore. mature. Like, I know that I'm almost 25 and these are written for like 13, 14-year-olds. I totally get that. But I didn't have that issue with any of the other books in the Shadowhunters Chronicles. So these were the first books that she published, and it was just a little rough and there were a lot of bumps. It just felt very, very young to me. And because of that, I couldn't connect to the characters, and some characters I actually felt indifferent towards. It wasn't really the series for me. I was just reading it for the full context because after I read the Infernal Devices, I was like, I want to know everything. If you want to feel like you are jumping into a time machine to 2007, I think you might really like this because there were a lot of moments where I laughed out loud. Some of the lines were so funny. Someone asked, how do you like your coffee? And the person responded like, black, like my soul. I can't say I wasn't entertained. I wouldn't reread it. There were a lot of things that kind of bothered me. I don't know how to rank these books, so I'm just going to tell you my favorite. The most enjoyable one to me was The City of Heavenly Fire, which is the 6th and final book in the series. And that's literally because everyone was communicating. There was barely any miscommunication, which plagued like the entire series. Like, we were repeating plot lines, and there was always like miscommunication drama, especially between Clary and Jace. Just constant repetition of miscommunication. And this was like the only book where that wasn't really a thing. Like, people were actually talking with each other. And also I liked it because there was an introduction to characters in the next series, which I'm going to be talking about next, in the Dark Artifices. Emma and Julian, they're introduced in the City of Heavenly Fire, as well as the Blackthorn kids, like the Blackthorn family. And I really was interested in learning more about them. So I really liked that. It was a relatively entertaining read. I think it was my favorite out of all of them. Most of them are quite similar to me in terms of ranking, but this is the one that stood out to me somehow. So that was The Mortal Instruments. It was an experience. Was it a good experience? A little bit. So the next series is The Dark Artifices, which is Lady Midnight, Lord of Shadows, Queen of Air and Darkness. This one is set in Los Angeles in 2012, I think. So we go from New York in The Mortal Instruments to Los Angeles like 5 years later. I can't say too much about this book because there are quite a few spoilers, even in the synopsis, I think. Like, a lot of the plot points are spoilery if you want to read The Mortal Instruments, so I really can't say too much. But basically, it follows Emma Carstairs and Julian Blackthorn, who end up investigating a demonic plot that stretches across the whole city. That's most of the first book. There's a lot more to the plot, but again, I can't really say much. I will just say that Emma and Julian are also parabatai, and the parabatai bond in this universe is essentially a pair of shadowhunters bound through an oath. And it's like a sacred oath, and it's like a lifelong bond that can only be broken in death. So this is like some serious stuff. Think of it like blood brothers or like platonic soulmates. Parabatai give each other strength in battle. They are in tune to each other's emotions. They are in tune to each other's actions. It is like just an absolutely unbreakable bond and a very, very, very close bond. But the kick is parabatai is a strictly platonic bond. The overarching government, the Clave, has these ancient laws, and one of the laws is if there is any kind of like romantic love between parabatai, there will be really, really bad consequences and really bad things will happen. And so no one quite knows why this is a rule. No one quite knows what happens if there is like a romantic relation between parabatai. But that might be a problem for Emma and Julian. This is literally the angstiest thing. The tone was a lot heavier. I mean, dark is in the title, so I guess I should have expected that, but it was just a lot more mature than I thought it was going to be. I think that the characters here are so much more compelling, and I think the reason why I loved it so much is because I am a sucker for big families. I just absolutely adore really close sibling bonds, like families that love each other so dearly, families that have been through so much. I just love the Blackthorn kids. I love learning about their family. I had such a soft spot for Julian because I have a soft spot for kids who kind of fall into the role of the parent or fall into the role of like the eldest sibling because they have no choice. The level of love that Julian has for his younger siblings. He started taking care of them when he was like 12 years old. So there's also a lot of grief surrounding that, you know, because he lost his childhood and he didn't really have another choice. But there's also just so much love. I remember there was like this one bit, he used to walk all the way down the hill to the grocery store and carry up the bags of like all of these groceries like multiple times for his siblings, like just going to and from. Everything that he sacrifices for his family, for his siblings, and how it just makes him so much of who he is. I really loved him. And in addition to that, I really liked how grief was explored in this trilogy. And I actually didn't come to this realization until I think about halfway through the last book, where I was like, oh, everyone in this story, like every single one of these characters are grieving. And it could be like a person that they're grieving, it could be a past version of themselves, it could be a moment in time that they're grieving. Like everyone is grieving something. There's not a single main character that is not grieving. And there's just a lot about grief and how to live with it and how to move on from it. And I just thought that that was explored really well in a really, really, really heartbreaking way. I actually cried a couple of times. Like it was rough. It's interesting because I think the platonic relationships in this trilogy affected me more than like the romantic relationship in regards to Emma and Julian. And like, don't get me wrong, I loved Emma and Julian, but I don't know, there was just something about like the family ties, like they just really get to me. I am really scared for the Wicked Powers. I don't like the way everything was being set up. There are so many moving pieces that are just kind of gradually coming together. Like it just doesn't look good. It really doesn't look good for our main cast. Everything is getting really serious. Everything is getting really dark. And there's just so much setup for the final trilogy that really scares me. Like I'm really scared for everyone. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. And then my ranking is Lord of Shadows, which is the second book, Queen of Air and Darkness, which is the last book, and then Lady Midnight. Also, okay, this is the last thing I'm going to say for real. The level of dread that I was experiencing for the entirety of the second and third book, I was experiencing dread. I was so stressed, and for good reason. I was stressed for good reason. Yeah, that was The Dark Artifices. Yeah, I really, really liked it. A lot more than I thought I would, honestly. Then I read The Ghost of the Shadow Market, which is a novella, so I'm really not going to talk about this because there are, again, a lot of spoilers. But I will say that it made me cry like 3 times. It's about one of my favorite characters, so I was expecting it to be emotional, but like, damn, why did she have to go so hard in a novella? And it was a really big novella too. I think it was like 500 pages. Then I read The Last Hours, which is Chain of Gold, Chain of Iron, and Chain of Thorns. And this series follows the children of characters from the Infernal Devices. So it kind of acts as a sequel. So we're back in London in the Edwardian era in like the early 1900s. So our main girl is Cordelia Carstairs. After her father is accused of a crime, she and her family go to London in hopes of preserving their reputation, and her mother also wants to marry her off and get married to someone who is very like high regarded in society. We also follow James and Lucy, who are childhood friends with Cordelia, as well as James's friends Matthew, Christopher, and Thomas. There is a very, very large cast of characters in this book, because then we also have Cordelia's brother Alistair, and there's just a lot. There's a lot of people. Cordelia very quickly gets pulled into their shenanigans, and in addition to that, she is like catastrophically head over heels in love with James, who at the moment is sworn to marry someone else, and you know, she's having a rough time. We start off in a period where shadowhunters in London are kind of just chilling. Like after the events of the Infernal Devices, there's really not that much that's happening. They still go on patrols and stuff, but they're not really seeing any demons. It's kind of chill. It's like a chill period until all of a sudden there are demon attacks left and right, and these ones are different because they can walk in daylight, which they're not supposed to be able to do. So there's the mystery of that, and then when they attack, they also poison their victims. So the whole city of London essentially goes on lockdown. I mean, the city of London, like the Shadowhunters in London, essentially go on lockdown. That's all I'm gonna say. There's a lot that I liked about it, but I think that there was just simply way too much miscommunication for me to fully enjoy it. Don't get me wrong, I loved Cordelia, I loved James, I love getting to learn more about like the kids of some of the characters in the Infernal Devices. I liked learning about their stories. I liked like the dreamy setting of this trilogy, and also going back in time to like the early 1900s. I liked all of those things. I felt like the plot needed a lot of work, and I just really am not a miscommunication girly. Like I get so frustrated when it's something that can be so easily resolved, and there are like complex things that need to be resolved in this series, but there are also quite a few things that could have been resolved if they just sat down and had an honest conversation and were honest with each other. All of them were scared of something. All of them had a secret or something that they just didn't want to share that they thought would lead to bad things happening, or that their friends would look at them differently or see them differently. And I just like the entire time I'm like, please just talk to each other. Like literally just speak to each other, talk to each other. I'm begging you. That was the experience for all three books, but mostly the last one I had issues with. Like the first two were enjoyable. I did enjoy them, but the last one, I just had a lot of issues with how everything wrapped up. And there were plot lines that we introduced in book one that were still a problem like halfway through book three, because she kept coming up with reasons that didn't quite make sense as to why these characters were not communicating. I can't tell this person this because what if they look at me like that? But then I'm like, that doesn't even make sense for who you are as a character. Like, why are you thinking like that? That is obviously there to just prolong the miscommunication as long as possible. And then when everything did get resolved, like halfway through the third book, there was like no time at all to process it. There is a conflict that lasts like practically all three books. And when it is resolved, it's just very, very, very fast. Like there's just no time to process it. They don't really get a lot of time together. It just feels messy. Like I don't know how else to describe it. And then don't even get me started on the love triangle. It just didn't work. Like on no account did it work at all. Very, very abrupt and just thrown in there. There was just absolutely no purpose for it, because it was one of those love triangles where you're reading it and you're like, I obviously know who's going to end up together. Like there's literally no reason for this. I just don't think that love triangles work if it is crystal clear who is going to end up together. What's the point? Like we know that it's not going to go anywhere. The other character in the love triangle, I didn't understand why he loved her. Like it just didn't make sense narratively, in my opinion. I know it sounds like I really didn't like it, but I just don't like miscommunication. I liked it as a whole. I don't think I would read it again, but I did have a good time for the most part, and I read it very fast. Like I think if it had a strong ending, this would be like on a much higher ranking for me, but unfortunately the ending was kind of disappointing. I just felt like she rushed through everything and there were so many loose ends, just things that were completely glossed over or just not mentioned, which didn't really make any sense. If you enjoy like soap operas, I think you might really like The Last Hours, because there is just like an endless amount of drama. Like there's always something that's happening. These three people have beef with each other because of this. These three people are in love with each other. Oh no, but this person loves them too. So if you like drama, I think you might like this. I'm not strong enough for miscommunication. I just talk. Just talk to each other. I'm begging you. I guess my ranking for this trilogy is Chain of Iron, Chain of Gold, and Chain of Thorns. Yeah, that was The Last Hours by Cassandra Clare. We made it, you guys. We made it. Honestly, it was just a wild ride. Like, I had a good time. I would totally do it again. I know it's like insane, but I would do it again. And the other books that I read were also really good. I don't think that I had anything under like 4 stars. I'm really hoping that May and June are months where I read more diversely, because I have not really kept up with the goal that I set for myself to read more diversely this year. And this was kind of like, it was like a detour. In terms of books that are on my radar that are upcoming, Release Me is available soon at my library. I eat up Tahara Mafi's books. Like I will read her books in one sitting. So I am excited. I'm going to wrap it up now because I've been talking forever. If you have any recommendations for me, if you have any comments or thoughts on any of the books that I mentioned, or just other books in general, let me know. And thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are in the world. I'll see you next time.